So our next speaker is Jingjing Liang, an associate professor of quantitative forest ecology, Department of Forestry and Natural Resources, Purdue University. He serves in the steering committee for the Purdue Institute for Physical Artificial Intelligence and on the leadership team for the Purdue Institute for a Sustainable Future. Dr. Liang heads the Purdue Forest Advanced Computing and Artificial Intelligence Laboratory. At the heart of his research lies a profound fascination with the global biodiversity patterns and their complex interplay with environmental and anthropogenic factors. To tackle the pressing challenges in this domain, he employs cutting-edge tools like machine learning and big data analysis. He firmly believes the future of the field hinges on robust international collaborations and harnessing the power of artificial intelligence to generate high-impact research outcomes. Dr. Liang is a trailblazer in the realm of international research collaborations and forest science. As the founder and chief science officer of ScienceEye, he has pioneered the development of a transparent and fair, that is findable, accessible, interoperable, and reusable web platform, redefining the way global researchers collaborate and share knowledge. He is keen on contributing to capacity building efforts for the Global South, as evidenced by his recent collaboration with the FAO. This experience has underscored the importance of knowledge sharing and empowerment in underserved regions. Outside the realm of academia, Dr. Liang is an avid runner and cyclist, drawing solace and inspiration amidst the trees and nature. In this environment, Dr. Liang thrives, driven by a passion for exploration, discovery, and collaboration that defines his remarkable career in forest science and research. Dr. Liang.
Thank you very much. Buongiorno, Roma. Hi, everyone. Greetings from Rome. And so I'm an associate professor, and also I'm an international consultant from Food and Agriculture Organization of the UN, which is located in Rome. So this year I'm taking a year of sabbatical leave, and I'm working from Rome. That's why I'm conducting remotely from here. I know I am the only person standing between you and the lunch, so I will try to talk briefly. But if you have any questions, please feel free to stop me at any time. So today, I've asked to talk a little bit about AI in forestry and some of my current forest research in terms of forest migration. And so when talking about AI, especially the application of AI in forestry, I would like to mention one person, which is Alan Turing, because he is considered the father of AI and also the father of modern computer science. And a very famous quote from Alan Turing is that if a machine can think, it might think more intelligently than we do. And so what we are doing now, especially when applying AI in forestry and forest research, we are trying to make use of the intelligence and computing power of AI to help us better understanding the phenomenon and some ecological questions in forestry. So when we talk about AI for forest research, I would like to direct your attention to the four pillars of AI, which is the algorithms, data, customers, and computing power. So the algorithms is, basically the approach and the method that we are using to solve a problem. And the data, as you already know it, it's the fuel for AI and is indispensable. So without data, there will be no AI. So this is very important. But another equally important, but sometimes ignored component is the customers, the people who are using the AI, and that is the true component that's the driving the development of AI. And then the fourth one is computing power. And without computing power, AI cannot go very fast. And but for forest research, we are mainly focused on the first three components: the algorithms, the data, and the customers. And so for my talk today, I'm going to talk about the two components: the algorithms and data. And a little bit of background of me and my lab. So our lab is called FACAI, and it's short for Forest Advanced Computing and Artificial Intelligence. So what we do is that we harness the state-of-the-art AI and global resources to conduct what we call the globally consistent yet locally relevant research on forest ecosystems. And in order to do that, we compile the largest global in situ or the ground-sourced biodiversity database and also forest inventory database. And we are also the service team for the Science Eye, which is a platform that is aimed at accelerating scientific discoveries with AI, big data, and a global connection with people from all around the world, 125 countries so far. And now I would like to talk briefly about my history of doing the research in the AI realm. And so it started back in 2015 and 2016. At that time, we were investigating a phenomenon that is called the relationship between tree diversity, the diversity, and ecosystem productivity. And at that time, in order to find out what is the relationship between the tree species diversity and the productivity of forest ecosystem across the world, we have compiled this big forest inventory database from different the forest inventory data sets that we collected from around the world. So if you see the map to the left, and it actually shows the location of all those plots that we used to study this relationship. At that time, we had about 700,000 forest inventory plots we collected from around the world. And based on those massive amount of data, we were able to basically trying to come up with a way to study the trend behind it. And at that time, it was challenging. We tried different models. We tried linear models. We tried different nonlinear models. But then someone suggested that, why don't you try a fairly new machine learning model that's called random forests? And so we tried it, and we actually find that this random forest model is actually performs much better than any other model that we have tried. And so at that time, we were able to actually quantify the relationship between tree species diversity and the productivity of forest from across the world. And according to our findings, a majority of forest types and forest plots from around the world, they all conform to this positive concave down relationship, which means that as the number of tree species in a local community increases and other factors being kept constant at their sample mean, the productivity of forest increases. And so this finding has been one of the very interesting findings that is discovered through this machine learning algorithm. And our story went on after that. We continued to compile forest inventory data from around the world. And based on that, we basically ventured into another exploration. We want to estimate the total number of tree species on Earth. And so far, we know that there are 60,000 tree species on Earth that have been documented. Okay, however, what we do not know is that how many tree species are there that have not been documented and are yet to be discovered by human beings. And in order to do that, we employ a new algorithm. And then actually, when I talk about the new algorithm, it is fairly an old one. It's developed by Alan Turing and his assistant I.G. Good during the Second World War. And at that time, they discovered that the rare frequencies or the rare signals of a system can be estimated based on the known rare signals. And so when we translate their Alan Turing's theorem, which is called the Good-Turing frequency estimation, when we translated that into the forest ecology realm, and we were able to actually use our known data about the distribution and and the abundance of tree species. And based on that, we were able to estimate how many tree species that are yet to be discovered. And our finding is that there are a total of around 73,000 tree species. So compared to what we know, there are still yet about 13,000 tree species that are yet to be discovered. Now, the sad truth is, well, with the deforestation and forest degradation going on, especially in the tropical forests, and many of those species may be gone before we even had a chance to document them. Now comes to my topic today. I would like to talk about, one thing that may sound very, very new to you, which is called forest migration. Okay, you might be wondering, how can forests migrate? I mean, trees, they do not have legs, and how can they migrate? Okay, before we start, I'd like to use this very famous quote from the philosopher, very famous one, Heraclitus. Basically, his famous quote is that the only constant in life is change. And how is this applied to forest ecosystems? So let's take two photos here. For example, the photos to the left shows the forest die-off in the US Southwest. Actually, the left one is 2002, and the right one is 2004. And this I got this photo from the USGS. And so basically, it shows that a typical pinyon pine ecosystem. And at the year of 2002, many of the pinyon pines, they are dying. They already shows the sign of dying. And as you can see, the crown become yellow because due to drought and other environmental stressors. And then in 2004, as many of the pinyon pine have already died, the entire ecosystem has shifted from the pinyon pine dominated forest to something entirely different, to the hardwood shrubs dominated forest. So this is one example. And the other example is demonstrated in the photos to the right. Basically here it shows the consequences of Arctic warming. And these photos are taken in Siberia. And as you can see, back in 1962, in that particular location in Siberia. And so it's an Arctic tundra ecosystem with very sporadic trees. And some of the, and however, you can see some of the hardwoods, shrubs are starting to establish there. And however, when we take another picture from exactly the same spot in 2004, we see that forests have established in there. And in addition to some of the hardwood trees, and as you can see, there are many softwood trees established in there. Many of them are Siberian larch, and this is a typical climax species in that ecosystem. So in a short 40 years, the entire forest ecosystem have changed from a tundra ecosystem to a typical boreal forest ecosystem. So the entire forest type, they have shifted in that particular location. So when we talk about forest migration, first we have to classify the forest types so that we can quantify their changes. Now, when we talk about forest type classification, it has been a biggest hurdle to researchers like us because existing forest type classification is limited to a few countries with abundant data. And however, even with those few countries that have forest type classification, this classification is inconsistent across borders. Take North America, for example, Canada. And so the country of Canada, their forest management is mostly based on its terrestrial ecozones that they classified. And however, for across the border, for the United States, the U.S. Forest Service, their forest management is based primarily on this what they call the forest type. So the national forest type groups that they classified using a fairly new data-driven method. So, and as you can see, those two systems, they are not compatible. They are entirely different. And so this has been a huge hurdle for researchers. Now, in order to go over this hurdle, we are preparing a large amount of forest data from North America, so from Canada and US, including Alaska. And what we have done is that we have compiled the ground-sourced forest inventory plots from the provincial and national forest inventory systems. And we have also classified all those inventory plots into two different periods. One is from 1970 to the 1999, which is shown to the right, and the other is from 2000 to 2019, which is shown to the left. And based on that, and integrated with different artificial intelligence models, we were able to classify the forest types across the entire continent. And so to briefly go through the method we use, first we use k-means cluster to reduce the dimension of the data so that the data can be manageable by other AI systems. And then we are using this autoencoder neural network, a typical deep learning approach, basically to classify different species composition, forest with different species abundance and composition into a coherent system of forest types. And then we can even compare the different model metrics in order to select the best approach. And based on the best approach, then we use the random forest, which is a classic machine learning model, supervised machine learning model. And then we were able to map the distribution of different forest types across the entire continent. So this is basically the algorithms we were using. And as you can see, for a small studies like this, we are using already different AI method from deep learning to machine learning, from k-means cluster to random forests. So what we have found, or what we have classified, are the entire continent, including Canada, US, and then later on, we also got data from Mexico and other countries from North and Central America. And so we were able to quantify all those different forests into around 40 different forest types. And this is a consistent classification system which goes across the borders, so that this thing, we can use this for managing and conservation of forest ecosystem across the entire continent. And then after we have quantified and classified the forest types, we were able to actually, based on the forest inventory data that we collected from two periods, we were able to quantify how much in space each different forest type they have moved or migrated in terms of the centroids of those different forest types. And as you can see, from 1970 to 2000, this animated photo shows how much each different forest types they have changed. And as you can see, most of the changes are concentrated in the boreal forest ecosystem, especially in northern Canada and Alaska as well. And let's take a look at how much forest types have shifted across that period. And if you take a look at the map to the left, it shows the velocity or the speed of this forest type shifting in terms of the kilometer per decade. And as you can see, for most of the US, the forest migration speed is somewhere between 5 and 30 kilometer per decade. However, if we come to the northern US, especially in the lake states, the northeastern US, and also if we even goes further north in venturing into the boreal ecosystems in Canada and Alaska, we can see some of the forest ecosystem have migrated by over 100 kilometers per decade. So that means that they migrated over 10 kilometers per year, and that's a very fast migrating. And now, when we compare the velocity of forest type migration against the velocity of tree species migration, and we can see there is a clear distinction between the two types of migration. So if you take a look at the column charts to the right, and you can see the forest migration, forest type migration is represented in those red columns, and the species um, uh, migration are represented in the columns in blue. And so you can see a majority of forest types, they have a forest migration speed greater than tree species migration speed. And only a few, around 10 different forest types, and they have a tree species migration higher than the forest migration speed. Now, this has a huge consequences in forestry and beyond. And why do we do this? What are the consequences? First, forests are migrating much faster than we had expected because our previous knowledge of how much forests are migrating are solely based on tree species migration. But here we find that as an aggregation or assemblage of different species, the forest ecosystem are actually migrating much faster. Now, how would that relate to the forest management and conservation? First, we know that the local industries, the cultures and identities of people, they are tied to the surrounding forest types. And often they are not tied to a certain tree species, but instead to the type and the characteristics of the forests surrounding them. And that has so the fast migrating forest types, they have a huge society and social and economical impacts. And let's take a look at this white oak hickory ecosystem, for example. We know that this white oak forest, different white oak species, they are instrumental to this industry of basically the wine barrels. And we all know that the bourbon whiskey, they need to be aged in this freshly made and freshly charcoaled white oak species. And so if the white oak and hickory, when they are migrating away, uh, uh, according to our estimation, the migration is quite significant if you compare the present distribution and the past distribution. You can see that some of the area in the south central U.S. They now do not have much of the white oak and hickory forest left in those areas. So this has posed a huge threat to the industry, to the bourbon industry. And so it has caused actually a lot of money, a lot of impact and in terms of the monetary loss. And also the indigenous communities and rural communities, their culture, their customs, they are based on the forest surrounding them. And now, with the forest quickly migrating away, they need to adapt. And how can we help that? That remains a question. So, yeah, with that, thank you very much for your attention. And I would like to recognize the sponsors of our research as follows. And now I'm ready to take your questions if there is any.
All right, thank you for your talk. Any questions from the audience? Okay, so anything online? Okay, so I've got a quick question. So I think this is a really nice example of some of these like specialized applications that our previous speaker alluded to as being particularly impactful. So rather than using kind of a general purpose problem solver, you're designing algorithms for your specific use case, so these kind of targeted models. So like what types, you allude to like random forests and some neural networks. What types of like domain expertise do you typically rely on from, say, computer scientists, mathematicians, statisticians, et cetera, to develop the algorithms that you find most useful?
Hmm. So in order to solve forestry and forest ecology problems, and we most likely, and also in my experience, we rely most on ecological theories and expertise in ecology. That's what we rely on the most. And as for the AI, the domain in AI, and so I think since we are focused on the application end of different AI tools, and we were just fast adopting those different packages and different readily made softwares and codes, and then we are adapting those to our own use, to our applications of forestry and ecology. So I would think if, for example, if I needed to hire a new student, and I would first primarily focus on the expertise and background knowledge of that student in terms of their understanding in ecological theories and phenomena, and then the secondary knowledge and some background in mathematics, statistics, and also machine learning and other AI tools would be helpful, but it is not absolutely necessary.
Any questions from the room? So I've got a follow-up question. So given the realities of climate change, how good do you find that your models are at predicting, say forest migration or these other phenomena that might be changing or accelerating, with the changing climate?
Yes, so we acknowledge that the climate change is one of the main drivers of the change in forest ecosystems. And because of that, we are adapting the climate variables, the different climate attributes in the model as predictors, so that our model they will be sensitive and adaptive to to different types of climate change. And we did find that those bioclimate variables, they are one of the most effective predictors and the most important drivers of different types of the, the ecological attributes. And so I think we often find that this being able to incorporate bioclimate variables in ecological models, they are truly a very useful way to handle some of the problems.
Okay, great. Thank you. So yeah, thank you for your talk. And thank you for a very interesting topic.
Okay, thank you very much.